Thanks everyone for joining. What we're going to do today is giving you an overview on some of our thinking around information management and the importance of tracking with data and the role that that has to play in ISO 19650. And really the objective is outlining how we think ISO 19650 becomes a tool for you. Right now, we think the whole industry and a lot of people have to spend a lot of time making ISO 19650 work and putting in the effort to make it work. We think in an ideal, the goal of 19650 is to actually make your life easier and to make projects better and for them to deliver better outcomes. So I'm going to be sharing a lot about where we see information management going, the role that that has to play, the role that you have to play, and all of that, and how we think we can help in all of that. So thanks for everyone who's joining us today. If don't know me, my name is Mo. I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Morta, and we got on this journey with the BIM Heroes community and Coordinator Summit around 2 years ago, when Ralph was organizing the first summit that was online. I think we're still in COVID times. And since then, the relationship has only deepened. And the primary reason for that is we really, as a company, believe that BIM is the future of construction, and it can unlock a lot of benefits for the industry. And what we really wanted to do is to be a part of this community to help upskill, to help people understand the importance of data and really what we can do with data to unlock efficiencies and drive performance in projects. So what I'll do, as I mentioned, is I'm going to take you through our presentation. Thank you all for joining today. This will be the first of hopefully many. And we always welcome feedback. So any thoughts that you have on what we're presenting, any questions that you have, please do feel free to reach out to me, and please do drop questions during the session in the questions and answers, and we'll be engaging with them towards the end of the session. Now, I just want to start by, I don't actually usually do this, and I hate doing it. But I just wanted to outline like my start point and my background for all of this. I started my career with a title of an automation engineer. So I'm a civil engineer by trade. I studied here in the UK, and I then graduated and I joined one of the largest contractors in the Middle East, CCC. And my title was automation engineer, which is an unusual title in itself and doesn't exist really in the industry. But the point of an automation engineer was doing a combination of things. So we'd implement systems and projects to support things like progress monitoring and material tracking and so on and so forth. We create reports using systems that precede PowerBI, which we all know of today. And we had to get into things like SQL and the likes thereof. And we'd set best practices for information, what would now be termed information management. And a lot of the focus of the company was on using BIM models to drive project delivery and project controls. So we'd plan our material, for example, off the back of what is in the BIM model. We'd calculate our progress on the project off the back of reporting that would happen in a BIM-based environment. And this was back in 2013. I was lucky enough to work on some really large projects. I started my training on the Midfield Terminal project, which is a $3.5 billion development in the UAE. And I got to see how the company approached integrated project controls there. I then moved to the UAE, where I worked in an oil and gas field in the middle of absolute nowhere. It was a $700 million project. I was the automation engineer on the job, and I was involved in what was the first work packaging implementation in the project. Work packaging is a system for is a philosophy for project controls and how you drive planning. So I was looking a lot at that and how we leverage BIM-based systems for that. I then moved to Kuwait and I worked there on an $800 million development. Again, there I was focused on integrated project controls. I was looking at how do we integrate cost systems with progress measurement systems, with quality control systems, with our document management systems, and how do we get an overview of how our projects are performing with data. Following that, and having a bit of it was too early to be having a midlife crisis, but I was like, what am I doing in oil and gas? And I ended up going to Cambridge to do a master's in engineering for sustainable development. And there I really came across and started understanding the challenges that climate change is going to bring to the industry. And a lot of people were talking about things like carbon, ESG, and so on and so forth. And it was from a policy and management perspective. And I really came to believe that being able to measure the carbon footprint, being able to measure the environmental impact of projects, being able to understand what waste we're producing and what material we use is going to be critical for things like the circular economy and making the built environment better and more resilient. And I had come across companies and I realized that a lot of what we're actually doing with data was really, really interesting. So I rejoined the company that I was with to work with our chief information officer on setting best practices for use of data for project delivery and what we described as BIM-based project controls. Towards the end of that, I was involved in setting up the innovation and R&D arm of the company, and I spoke to all kinds of startups. And they were talking about things like AI and 3D printing and drones and digital twins. And I too got into things like blockchain at the time. But what I really found was a lot of the top challenges in the industry, what I describe as the basics, weren't being resolved. And as a result, I decided to make a jump. So let's just think about what are some of the industry's challenges. People talk about productivity losses. The industry can be more productive. If you're in the UK, we can talk about building safety. If you're in any place in the world where you have high-rise buildings, fires are happening and evidencing that things are actually being delivered as per the requirements is becoming more and more important. Handover and ensuring that we have the information that we need to operate our assets is extremely important. Measuring carbon and understanding our carbon footprint is obviously one of the biggest topics. Resource use is important, both from an environmental footprint perspective, but also because that is the biggest cost in any of these projects that we deliver. But then there are bigger problems as well. Who's accountable? Are people delivering what they should be delivering? That's another really, really big one. And having trust between the different parties that are involved in the project is of utmost importance and is a very big challenge in the industry. But when I think about these challenges, I really see them as symptoms to a problem. They aren't actually a challenge. There is a root cause for these challenges. And the root cause for these challenges is poor information planning and tracking, because that hampers visibility and it hampers performance because people have to do a lot of these processes manually. So let's take the landscape today. Whether I'm a design manager, if I'm a design manager, I want to understand design progress and I want to understand whether my design is compliant with requirements. If I'm a BIM manager, I want to understand, or an information manager, I want to understand if the information I have is complete and fit for purpose. Does it meet the EIR, for example? If I'm a commercial manager, I have to understand whether my project is within budget, and I may want to understand how my supply chain is performing. If I'm a quality and assurance control coordinator or manager, I want to understand whether I'm complying with all of my ISO requirements from 19650 to 9001 to the list goes on. And if I'm a sustainability manager, I want to understand the planned and actual carbon footprint of my project. And even more importantly, I'm going to need to evidence my carbon footprint over time in line with insurance, like the push that's going to start happening from insurance bodies and legislations and so on and so forth. But to answer any of these questions today, what has to happen is someone opens up an Excel-based tracker. That Excel-based tracker will have a plan for what they're expecting to happen. And they then need to go into systems like Autodesk Construction Cloud, like Aconex, like Viewpoint, like Asite, like Revit. And they will pull data from these systems and they will dump them into that Excel-based tracker. The same Excel-based tracker has to then interface with documents that are created, like exchange information requirements and then execution plans, or like information management reports, handover and O&M manuals and sustainability reports and so on and so forth. So what that ends up meaning is that we have highly manual processes. A lot of our information is disconnected, and it takes me time to answer any of these questions. No one has a real-time view of how complete is my information on a project. No one can understand very quickly what is the design progress on a project. No one can quickly understand what is the commercial performance of this project. And that then means that by the point at which people learn how this process is performing, often if things have started going wrong, it's actually too late for anyone to do anything about it. So in other words, every construction organization, from an owner to a multidisciplinary design firm to a main contractor, is sitting on a lot of risk that it has no understanding of and no visibility of. And I think that's the most important challenge for us to be looking at resolving as a sector. The way I see it is where the sector needs to move towards, and what anyone in information management wants, is a world in which we track with data and we connect information so that we can drive performance. We don't think that what we really all want is we want requirements to connect to cost, to connect to time, to connect to design, to connect to construction, to connect to the resources required to deliver each of these, from supply chain to workforce to material to equipment. And we want that to link to what we describe as interface areas: information management, risk management, and change management. Each of these should not be a silo of its own. They should all speak together. They should all connect with each other. They should all draw upon the same data. I have a document management system. Everyone should be using the data that's coming out of that document management system. I have a BIM model that has a list of all of the material and components that I should be using within my project. I should use that for my procurement, and I should use that to plan out my inspections. I have an ASTA project or a P6. I should use that for my planning. And I have a field system which has a record of all of the inspections that have happened. I should use that to inform my commercial decisions and my quality decisions and so on and so forth. So everyone should be pulling from the same sources of truth so that we're all speaking consistently within the company and within the project. And then all of this information should be pulled into things like PowerBI dashboards, like BIM models, like ArcGIS. And I'm sure some of you are coming across ChatGPT and AI and Copilot and Gemini and the likes thereof. You should be able to draw upon that data and pull it into any of these different environments. If you ask me, this is what information management is trying to unlock. It was never about just geometry. It was always about having connected data that we can use to make and drive day-to-day decisions within projects. And if we do that, that becomes useful for projects. It helps people understand that their design is performing as per the plan. It helps the commercial manager understand that their project is on budget and assess what they should be paying people and manage cash flow risks. It helps the QA/QC manager or coordinator understand and demonstrate that they are complying with a range of requirements and a range of standards and the regulatory requirements, the client's requirements, and so on and so forth. And it helps the sustainability manager actually understand their carbon footprint and report on their carbon footprint. That's where we should get to. Now, to get there, if we get there, that then gives us a lot of benefits as an industry. The first is it reduces risk. The second is it saves you time. People do not like filling these manual spreadsheets. And I'm sure you want to do something better with your time. And people don't like continuously reproducing the same document over and over again. So what we're seeing is over time, as companies connect data, at the very least, they're saving a day a week from administrative processes. Supports consistency and standardization, being able to collect the same data so that then we can report on that data and have the visibility and insight that we need to understand how the organization is performing. And then it starts supporting things like Industry 4.0. It's all well and good to have something like a ChatGPT that I can ask questions and I can get answers from quickly. But I need to make sure that it has access to their most recent data and that the data that's going into it is data that I can trust. Now, what do we need to get there? We need a range of things. We need information management standards. Fundamentally, what we need to do is we need to manage information effectively. So in my eyes, every single person who's here, who's part of this community, is someone who thinks that BIM and that information management are important. But what often happens is we're overly focused on how do I comply with a standard like 19650. But the standard of 19650 is there to support all of the objectives that I've just talked about earlier. So the first thing that I need is to implement these process-based standards like 19650 and 9001 and many others. The second is I need to have a standardized information model within my project. It doesn't necessarily need to be on an industry level, but we can take things like IFC, IDS, BCF, CFOS, and there are many other schemas and models that one could look at for how you actually collect that data. We then have classification systems. So when we hear about things like Uniclass, when we hear about things like Omniclass, CSI, so on and so forth, what we're trying to do there is we're trying to find a common way of describing things. When I'm saying what is the role of someone, when I'm describing a system, when I'm describing a product, I want to be able to describe these things consistently so that we're all speaking the same language. Now, these are the three key things that every information manager over time, or BIM manager, or anyone who's involved in information management needs to have a high level at the very least, a high level understanding and appreciation of. You don't need to understand the intricacies of what does IDS do. You don't need to understand the intricacies of IFC, but you need to understand why it exists and how to possibly interact with it. And then we need systems. So we need to ideally support this with robust systems that can connect with each other, that are interoperable, that don't lock in data, and that support this vision. Now, there are a wide range of types of systems that you can look at in the market. And I'm going to try to outline those today. So I am not the first and I am not the only person who will say Excel and Word have their challenges in the industry. Software vendors say that every single day. But we've seen various types of solutions for the problem, the technical problems that I'm describing, and replacements for Excel and Word. The first is dedicated point solutions. That's what you're most used to. So to describe a dedicated point solution, it's usually a solution that comes and says, for example, BIM execution planning should move, or OIRs and AIRs shouldn't be in Word and Word. I'm going to build a system that just does these things. Another example of that would be an accounting system or a handover system that have hard-coded O&M manuals and health and safety files to be produced in very specific ways. What they really give you is predefined processes to learn from. So you have that as a base of reference. But the challenge is they're siloed and they're difficult to customize. So they don't connect well with your other systems. And if you then ask, can I change this? Can I add this additional process? Can I add this additional tracker? Can I start using it for my design trackers? Can I use it for my commercial trackers? Can I use it for my cost trackers? Can I use it for the Building Safety Act and demonstrating compliance there and producing my compliance statements there? They can't do that because they are usually hard-coded and they do things in a very, very specific way, and they're rigid systems. They have their place, but I think we need to think hard about which systems we want to be bringing on board and which need to be siloed and just optimizing for that one specific persona. The second option is building it yourself. To a degree, that's the kind of thing that I used to do in my job. I'd open up things like SQL Server and we'd build custom systems. They would be very difficult to build. They'd be very clunky, but the advantage that they really give you, and give an organization, is the flexibility. They mirror a very specific process that you'd be creating in the exact way that you think is right. And that's massively powerful for some of the, especially the largest players. But takes time, takes a lot of skill in order to be able to develop these. The last option, got the colors wrong here, is no-code solutions or low-code solutions. If you've seen things like Airtable, Monday.com, Smartsheets, Confluence, Coda, Asana, they're all examples of solutions that have flexibility and have uncapped potential. If you really understand them, you can move every single Excel-based tracker and Word document into a robust cloud-based system where they will connect with each other. That's the one that I get the most excited about because the sky is the limit. It's you and your creativity and what you can do with it and what you can build on it. And that then means you can continuously improve your processes. So I always admire companies that have taken no-code solutions and have tried to make them work for them. The challenge, though, is these companies aren't optimizing for a sector. So someone like me can use them to prepare for today's presentation or book review and so on and so forth. But equally, they're used in the financial sector, they're used in healthcare, which then means they don't speak your language. They're not set up for project-based collaboration. They don't have the integrations you need, and you need to figure out how and what you want to build on them. Where we come in is we see ourselves as something that's somewhere in between all of the above. We want to give you a highly customizable and connected solution for tracking planned versus actual in the built environment. You should be able to understand the performance of your projects, the performance of your information models, the performance of your information deliverables and design deliverables very, very quickly. And all teams over time should have a single hub that they can go into to fill in their data and to view their data. Whether it's a supply chain member or whether it's an adjacent team, there is a single environment that people can come in and access and can do what they would have done in Word and Excel in a much more standardized manner and much more dynamic manner that saves them a lot of time. Because we focus on the sector, we have templates that help you get started. But the key thing about the platform is it's highly configurable. If you want to add an extra column, you can. If you want to change the name of the column, you can. If you want to add a new tracker, you can. Which then means you can continuously innovate and you can continuously improve and you can make these trackers your own and you can make them fit for your ways of working and the sector that you're in and the region that you're in. We think spreadsheets, one of their biggest challenges is that you cannot control for data quality. So within every one of these, even though they look like Excel, it's actually a database. So you have a data type behind these, and you can define rules. I don't want blank values. I don't want duplicate values. I want my file name to have a very specific convention that meets my ISO requirements. And all of this is being validated in real time, and the governance is happening in real time, so that I'm getting feedback on the data quality that I have. But we don't think we are going to be the only system, and we do not want to be the only system in your tech stack. We want to focus on what we do very, very well. So we make it very easy for you to reuse data from other systems like ACC and like Viewpoint and like Asite and the likes thereof. So you can see I can click sync data, I can pull data from external sources, I can pick my project and I can bring that data in. And this data will then refresh on a daily basis so that you continuously understand the progress of your project and so that you completely automate your reporting off the back of this data. And then because you're in a web-based hub, because it's a database, you can collaborate with many different parties to create on a single source of truth. So the task teams can come in and can fill in their task information delivery plan in this table. They would see the bit that's relevant to them. The other team would see the bit that's relevant to them. And they would then be able to fill these in, get feedback on their data, and all of that aggregates into a single source of truth. And then next to that, they can see the status of what they've delivered. Has it been uploaded into ACT? And what's the link, for example, to that file that was uploaded into ACC? And then once one has done that, they can derive insight by pulling data into various systems. The community here, like one of the things that's really nice is you have the likes of Esri are in the mix, and then there are many others that are supporting various tools from BI to BIM model software to, I'm sure some people in the community are involved in AI. Fundamentally, we as a company, we think you should be able to pull this data into various places so that you can derive insights from it. We have basic reporting functionality, but then if you build the skill set, you can take this and unlock the value of this data in various mediums, depending on the right medium for what you're trying to analyze. Now, one of the things we're lucky with is we're working with a lot of the leading organizations here in the UK and internationally across the built environment. So we've been very quiet for the last 6 years, or relatively quiet at least. We didn't want to rush into marketing our product and into talking about how you implement ISO 19650 and things like that. We wanted to make sure that we've implemented it at scale with many different companies and to test that and to deploy that to ensure that when we start making claims, we can back up these claims and we can help you get there really, really quickly. So we've worked with many of these organizations, I think one of the things that's very important for us is because we think of flexible solutions as our competition. When we think of our product roadmap is mainly informed by the construction sector. We're not distracted by other sectors, unlike a Monday.com, for example, or an Airtable. But also, because we're working across all of these different functions and teams, we have an understanding of their needs, which means you get a much better product. One of the key communities we've also been working with is the UK BIM framework. So the UK BIM framework is currently hosting all of its guidance on the platform. This is free to access. So you don't need a username on Morta. You don't need anything on Morta in order to answer that. I know many people go to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT questions about BIM, but the reality is ChatGPT has a lot of things that are actually wrong and that don't come from trusted authorities. The UK BIM framework has been developed by some of the leading information managers, and the authors of the standards are involved in the editing process of what's in there. So you can trust that when you're asking it information or when you're reading about the delivery phase or the operational phase, that you're learning from a trusted source, and you can use that as a reference. I open it a lot in order to understand more about information requirements and information delivery planning. One of the features that exists in the framework is an Ask Morta AI feature. So I can say, what is an information delivery plan, for example? And off the back of that, I can get an answer for my question that's based only on the data and the information that's within this hub. And it then points me to the relevant document so that I can learn more about this. I can ask it, what is COBie? And then I can get an answer about what is COBie. And that explains that. Or I'm an information manager who wants to explain why information management is important. So I can go, why is information management important? I'm actually not sure if I'm going to get an answer to this. It did. So it points me, there is actually a section called Why is Information Management Important? But it says information management is important because it helps organizations effectively do so on and so forth to perform core business tasks. Now it's a beta feature, but it starts showing you that this is built on a trusted authority. And I think that's really, really important. There's a lot of misinformation. There are a lot of people who talk about things like 19650 without understanding them, if I'm honest. And ChatGPT has been trained on a lot of things that aren't actually right. So this exists so that you can actually have the right answers that you need. Now, this approach is being adopted by many different sectors across 8 different countries, from schools to hospitals to entertainment venues, to office refurbishment, to infrastructure projects and water utilities and data centers and ports for things like nuclear submarines and high-rise residential towers. We're involved in all of these, and we have an understanding of how information management works across all of the spectrum of projects, from small to large. But what's really important for us is behind all of these projects is a community of our BIM heroes that are pushing the boundaries of what is possible with information managers. They aren't people who just want to comply with 19650. They're people who want to set the standard for what 19650 can do in order to deliver and drive better performance. They want information management to be useful for projects. I'm going to give you a few examples. The first is Jamili Tuma. Jamili works with Mace. What she's doing is she's setting the standard in real-time visibility and performance tracking. What she did was she simplified project tracking with real-time data. She improved collaboration using standardized approach, and she's saving time for teams through automated workflows and clear audit trails. She's pulling in data from various systems, and she's bringing that into a standardized tracker that can then be used for review processes. What you can take from that is by simplifying and standardizing your trackers and leveraging your existing data, you can save time and you can deliver impactful results to understand project performance. Mariano and Samuel from Mott MacDonald are two digital consultants. I've learned a lot from both of them. They're driving excellence in CDE tracking and information delivery planning. We have a community day in Morta and community sessions. And some people think that when we bring people on to our community sessions, we're picking people because they're very big names in the industry, or because they come from a very big organization, or because they pay Morta a lot. We don't. That's not how it works. What we do is we see whether we've learned something from someone. If we've learned something from someone, we then invite them to share their knowledge with the rest of the community. So what Mariano and Samuel blew my mind with was how they used our audit trails functionality to automate change tracking. So they've been able to deliver real-time insights to over 500 team members across different 30 design disciplines. They're saving time from administrative processes, and they're enhancing visibility on performance. And this has helped them create automated change reports. So they understand when people are making changes in their information delivery plans. They understand when people are changing plan dates. They understand when people are adding deliverables, and they can actually monitor performance using audit trails. Andrew Waring, he's amazing because if you want to give someone, he would not mind me saying that, he said that on our community days, he will test the limits of the platform and everything that he's doing. He's a true hacker. He's self-learned Python, and he's creating all kinds of dashboards. He's absolutely pushing the platform to its absolute edge. There are many levels you can go with the platform. You can do some things with no coding knowledge whatsoever. You can push it over time. He's fundamentally reimagining the process for quality assurance and for COBE and information delivery. They've been able to enable granular validation with detailed audit trails. They're providing real-time visibility, and they're automating repetitive tasks. And they're creating what they term as a data validation as a service product. William Baker Jones has used things like IFC OpenShell, as well as level of information need and specifying requirements in Morta, in order to automate data assurance at scale, which then gives them continuous assurance. What I really like about William is he goes in, he uses APIs, and he uses things like IFC OpenShell to go to the highest extreme of what is possible in terms of automation to save the company time and ensure that there's a consistent standard of delivery. Thomas Crossley was, along with Ashley Dawson, they were the first two people to actually implement Morta for information delivery plans on a job. Since then, Tom has been leading the drive across Kier Group to automate and standardize delivery planning and tracking across the business. What they really want is a dashboard that helps them understand how all of their deliverables are performing and whether they're meeting their different clients' requirements. And Andy Bootle, some of you will know him. He was actually the first person to adopt Morta as a main contractor. He's standardized a lot of the ISO 19650 resources on top of the platform. And in doing so, that helps them save time and effort when they're producing these documents. It helps them reduce delays and human errors. And it's helping him have real-time visibility on performance again, but equally on workforce mobilization, like trackers that you should have in a mobilization plan. Veronique and Megan are also two of the people that I admire the most, because a lot of people will say that only big companies, very big companies will do these things, or only main contractors and multidisciplinary design firms do this. XD House is a cutting edge design firm that is really worth looking into. And us also, the CEO is an absolutely great guy. But what Veronique and Megan did was they took all of their appointed party documents, they built that on the platform, and that's helped them improve alignment with industry standards using centralized web-based resources. And they used that to support their kite mark audit, which really impressed the auditor. Now, fundamentally, what everyone is working towards is driving performance by tracking plan versus actual. They move things like, I'm not going to name them in the 19650 ways right now. We can go into that like more detail, but I don't think we should overly fixate on OIR, AIR, PIR, EIR. We have all of these, and we can help you create all of these different documents. But fundamentally, we should be speaking the industry's language. There are reference data sets that we need. There are responsibility matrices. There are requirements. We then also have things like project controls and commercial functions. These should link to master trackers that different supply chain members can input into or different team members can input into. And that should link to a wide range of external systems in order to automatically track plan versus actual. Now, to get there, every single one of the companies and people that I was speaking about earlier is working towards this vision. But to get there, they have a set of skills that I think every information manager should be looking to develop over time. Some will focus on things like learning ISO 19650. That's one of the things one should have an understanding and awareness of. The second is having an understanding of schemas. The third is you should be able to understand how to structure and govern your data. You should be able to create reports on things like PowerBI. You should understand how BIM tools work and what role they have to play. If you really want to push the boundaries on technical skills, you don't have to, but if you really want to push, you go into things like automation and using Python and learning how to use Python. And then now AI is becoming a thing. How do I set up? How do I best leverage a lot of these technologies that exist? To me, a lot of these things are what are described as technical, and I'm someone who's historically been very technical, and I'm still learning how to move out of the technical and into more of the business side of things. But things that you should also know are, how do you optimize a process? How do you map out a process? How do you re-engineer a process? When you think about someone like Elon Musk, his big thing and everything that he does is his ability to take things to first principles and optimize processes and reimagine them from their core. You should be able to communicate value. Why is information management important? Saying that I want to comply with 19650 should not be good enough. You should be articulating how that can make better projects and deliver better outcomes. You should be thinking about the life cycle. You should have an understanding of the business processes. What does a design manager do? What does a client manager do? What does a commercial manager do? Because if you understand that, you can speak their language, and that helps you define better requirements. You should be able to manage change. You should be able to ask questions, and you should have an awareness of things like security. So if you ask me, if you really want to be a leader in the field, complying with 19650 is not enough. You should go for much more than that. You should try to make information management achieve what it always set out to achieve, which is better outcomes. 19650 should work for you. Kobe and IFC, they should work for you. You should not be working for them. And that's really should be what we should aspire for. And we should develop a holistic set of skills. What's really nice, again, about BIM Heroes and about the different stages that are being developed, that's exactly the kind of thing that Ralph is driving after, developing this range of types of skill sets that you need. Now, on our end, we're committed to helping you get there. when I say we're committed to helping you get there, we don't think it's just helping you use Morta. That isn't what I am saying. It is not just giving you an understanding of that, though there would be an understanding of the role that no code has to play and how you'd go about structuring your data, more broadly speaking. What we'll do is the first session that we're going to be doing, we're going to have video libraries and content and so on and so forth over time. But the very first one that we want to set up is we want to demonstrate and give you a crash course as to how you can automatically track planned versus actual. So we think you can start doing a lot of the types of things that I was talking about earlier with the individuals and what they've achieved. Within this crash course, we're going to include things like an overview of the basics of information management. What are the things that you really should understand? How do you design a database? How do you quickly produce standardized 19650 documents? How do you reuse and track against existing data? And we will guide you towards building a sample Power BI dashboard that looks like this, that leverages APIs and helps you understand performance. And as a result, you'll then be much closer to being able to automate tracking and reporting that drives and supports successful outcomes. So thank you all for listening. I hope you found this useful. I hope you'll join us. And we're really keen to get feedback on how we can help, what skills we can share, what knowledge we can share. And we really hope that you'll join our community to make ISO 19650 work for you. I think it's enough of us working for 19650, and it's about time that we actually start making sure that 19650 is working for us and is helping us deliver better projects. Thanks for having me. I hope you found this useful. Any feedback, please do send my way. I hope you'll join the next session. If you have any ideas of other things that you would like us to share, please do let me know, and we'll follow up with an email. Thanks a lot.